What if the entire future of AI, electric cars, and green energy was secretly being decided in a single deal worth over $200 billion? Well, that deal almost happened, and today we're going to break down why it all fell apart based on some fantastic reporting from the Wall Street Journal by Rhiannon Hoyle and Mara Oru. All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll talk about the new gold rush for a really critical metal. Then we'll meet the two giants involved in this massive deal. Next, we'll dig into why it all collapsed, figure out what's next for the industry, and then wrap it all up with 3 key takeaways. You know, at the heart of this whole story is a metal you probably don't think about very often, copper. But it turns out the whole world is kind of in a new gold rush, and copper is the prize. Let's get into why. I mean, think about it for a second. From the phone that's in your hand to the servers that power the entire internet, there's one metal that's the absolute unsung hero of our digital lives. And yep, that metal is copper. And here's the thing. Demand for copper isn't just growing, it's exploding. According to industry giant BHP, by the year 2050, we're going to need 70% more than we use today. That is a staggering jump, and it's sparking this massive global scramble to get a hold of it. So what's driving all this? Well, one of the biggest reasons is something that feels totally invisible, the AI boom. Those enormous data centers that train AI models, they are absolutely packed with copper wiring. And they need even more just to power them. You can almost think of copper as the physical backbone of artificial intelligence. And that trend continues right onto our roads. The huge shift to electric vehicles is another massive factor. You see, an EV uses way more copper than a regular gas-powered car. So every single time a new EV is sold, that demand just keeps accelerating. And this brings us to another key driver, the huge push for green energy. Things like wind farms and other renewable projects need so much more copper than the old coal-fired power plants that they're being built to replace. So with copper demand just going through the roof, 2 of the absolute biggest players in the mining world saw this massive opportunity to create a company that would just dominate the market. Now, the 2 companies at the center of this story are total titans of the industry. On one side, you have Rio Tinto, a long-established Anglo-Australian mining giant. And on the other, there's Glencore, a famously aggressive trader and miner. For weeks, these 2 huge rivals were trying to forge a partnership that would have changed everything. What they were attempting is called a merger, and that's pretty simple, really. It's just a plan where 2 large companies agree to combine all their operations into one single, massive new company. And listen, this wasn't just any merger. The combined company would have been worth over $200 billion. It wouldn't have just created the world's largest mining company, but very likely its biggest copper producer, too. Okay, so if the logic was so strong and the prize was so huge, why in the world did it all fall apart? Well, that brings us right to the core of our story. You see, mega mergers like this are a complete minefield of challenges. It's not just about agreeing on a price. You have to get the green light from regulators in dozens of countries who all worry about one company having way too much power. You also have to somehow blend 2 totally different company cultures and navigate a world where a country's minerals are a matter of national security. And as Jefferies analyst Christopher LaFemina puts it, these deals are tough because of heightened geopolitical risks, especially in a world where critical minerals have become a top priority national security concern. Basically, governments get very nervous about who controls these resources. So in the end, after all those complicated negotiations, the whole thing boiled down to one simple sticking point: the price. Glencore felt that its assets were valuable enough to give its shareholders about 40% of the new company. Rio Tinto just disagreed, and on that one disagreement, the $200 billion deal completely fell apart. The failure of this mega deal leaves everyone with a pretty big question. If mining companies can't just combine to get bigger, how are they possibly going to meet this surging demand for copper? So if you're a mining company, you've essentially got 2 paths to grow. You can try to build a brand new mine from scratch, but that's incredibly slow, it's super expensive, and it's very risky. Or you can try to buy existing mines, which is a lot faster, but as we've just seen, it can be really, really complex. Because of all this, analysts believe the industry's entire strategy is starting to shift. So instead of trying to buy whole companies,
Miners are now going to focus on smaller deals, like buying individual mines or forming partnerships to work together on just one specific project.
All right, let's wrap this whole thing up. After all that, what are the most important things to remember from the collapse of this $200 billion deal? So, what have we learned? Okay, first, copper is kind of the new oil. Our whole tech future depends on it, which makes its supply a huge national security issue. Second, the era of the mega merger might just be over. These giant deals have become way too complex and politically risky to pull off. And third, the industry is adapting. Instead of buying whole companies, miners are now hunting for individual mines and smarter partnerships to get the resources we all need. And all of this leaves us with a really crucial question for the future. If the easiest way for these companies to get bigger, these giant mergers, is now off the table, how exactly is the world going to secure the essential materials that we need to power all of our technological ambitions?